Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining the latest episode of Lowdown on Low Code. Hey, we're going to take a break from having guests today. And actually, John Rymer and I are going to discuss some upcoming research that we've been working on for a long time. And it's been heavily informed by the podcast that hopefully you've all been listening to. If you haven't, hit the share button, hit the like button. We'd really like to get the word out to like-minded folks. Hey, how are you today, John? How's life?
Outstanding. How are you? Good to be with you.
Good. I'm good. Let me start with a grenade that's been thrown on the table a bunch of times by some pretty prominent folks. SaaS is dead, so says Mark Benioff, so says Satya Nadella. We've tried to figure out what exactly they mean by this, but what do we think, John? Is SaaS dead?
AI, the rise of AI.
Is it AI or is it A1? I'm getting mixed input on this.
Trust me, it's AI.
It's AI, okay.
AI, as we incorporate it into business applications, in fact, is pushing us away from the SaaS model. And it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And as we said, we've learned a lot over this, and we've got some new research coming out here shortly. Hey, John, can you give us 30, 40 seconds on the new research? We'll revisit this topic at the end.
Okay. So on Monday, we will publish on www.analysis.tech a new report called the AI Application Platform Race. So as Rob said, we've been working diligently for months, and part of what this informs this report is that work, but also we did deep assessments of 14 major vendors, new ones, some old ones, new ones like Writer, and some established ones like Pega, like Microsoft. So what we did was dive into their AI features, their AI plans going forward to understand if business applications are changing and SaaS is in fact dead or dying, then the new era of applications will demand certain services from application platforms. How will application platforms evolve? How will they change? How will they be different from the way we understand them today? That's what this report is about.
That's cool stuff, John. And I can tell you come from a place of experience because you described the URL as www.analysis.tech. Luckily, you didn't put the HTTP colon in the front, right? So, but it's, hey, you could just get to there with analysis.tech. All right. So let's talk about how different people are going to approach this, because there's a lot of different vendors with a lot of different interesting perspectives on strengths. And I'll set up maybe a little tension right to start. So this morning, Don Sherman of Pega, old friend, good friend, someone for whom we have a great deal of respect, said, come on, guys, SaaS is not dead. That's poppycock. Come on, think about it. And next week, our next episode of Lowdown on Low Code, Dave Marcus and I will be with Diego Lamonta, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Writer. And Writer has also been pretty adamant about this new class of applications. So they agree, but do you think they have different perspectives of what constitutes the best way to get there, John?
Absolutely. This is as you say, I'm experienced. I like that rather than you're old and decrepit. But that's also true sometimes.
These can all be true.
Yeah, at the same time. And in my career, I've lived through several platform generations. I mean, several, starting with client server. The young kids don't know about that, but starting with client server, and here we are. Low code is huge. Digital process automation is huge, but AI is coming into the mix, and it's torquing our understanding of applications. And listen, we have on the podcast talked through this, the way that customers are adopting AI. They start very small, usually automate single tasks, the classic Angela Angela Stewart story
Yep.
about using an AI agent to summarize a salesperson's call and inject that transcript into a client record. I mean, that's classic task. It never gets done, and now it gets done, and thanks to AI for that. But as we adopt AI more, more deeply into business processes, we're gonna see a change in business applications. We're gonna see a lot more business applications. You've been saying this for months, years, Rob, that cross boundaries. Agents don't like boundaries. They want the data that they need to carry out their mission wherever it comes from. And business processes don't like getting hung up on boundaries either. They want to basically automate the full process, regardless of organizational boundaries, data boundaries, etc. Well, this is happening. It's the beginnings of it are starting, and this is happening. And it means that app platforms are going to center on orchestration. They're going to center on integration. Maybe SaaS isn't dead, but the idea of a single business application centered on a critical data set is kind of old school. It's whatever data you need.
Yep.
Not a critical data set, multiple critical data sets.
I love it, John, and I think I'm gonna tease out one of these things a little later. We'll tease out this concept of agents don't like boundaries. Agents kind of don't give a hoot about boundaries, right? We'll talk a little bit about how folks like maybe Workato think about this and how data can move across multiple systems pretty seamlessly. But let's go back to kind of our start
Okay.
here and talk about a couple things that we've been to recently. So you and Dave Marcus went to Appian World. Francis Carden and Dave Marcus just returned from Pega World. I kind of started off with Don Sherman says SaaS is not dead, and frankly, I don't tend to disagree with Don very often, and I don't disagree with him here. This whole sort of hyperbole that's coming up around this whole topic is pushing things too far and too fast. And with that in mind, I'm Pega is really pushing the boundaries on AI, right?
Yeah.
So, is Don a skeptic? I think Don's a realist. And at the same time, what they're doing with Blueprint and talking about generating new types of applications that can be built rather than bought and generating them quickly and agent enabling them, which is honestly something Pega's been at this with different terminology for a long time.
Yeah.
We have to take these digital process automation vendors really seriously in this space, right? I mean, between orchestration, between pretty robust integration, they've thought about this stuff for a long time, incredibly good application development, phenomenally good workflow capabilities.
Yeah.
These guys are in a really interesting position, don't you think?
Absolutely. And task automation, Rob.
And task automation, right? They've all bought RPA vendors.
That's right. So yes, they're in a very good position. And I would say, well, you'll see in the report, folks, we set these next generation platforms are centered on orchestration and process automation. And so that gives this collection of Pega, Appian, et cetera, a very strong point to attack the next generation of platforms.
Without a doubt. I mean, in terms of the comprehensive capabilities, they find themselves in a very interesting position. And these guys have been kind of pushed into these high-end, sophisticated workflow applications. This is an interesting moment because disruption can be, an interesting time to break out of that. And it'll be interesting to kind of see. And again, I try not to get overexcited about technology, but I think Blueprint's really cool. And I think they've made a sizable investment in the technology as opposed to just sort of the marketing story. But next week, Diego Lamonto of Writer, right? So our research, in our research in the research about to be published and the research that we've been working on, folks like Writer, folks like Anthropic, folks like OpenAI,
Google,
these guys, and Google, these guys are in a really interesting, different position of strength that you have to pay attention to.
Yep. Yep. Most of the vendors we like I said, we really closely studied 14 vendors, and that work is ongoing. We're gonna tackle some of the other big players as well, but most of them are established vendors. Writer as an example, Anthropic as an example, do not face innovator's dilemma. They don't have an existing business that they have to figure out how to transition from. That's always a bit of an anchor, a bit of a boat anchor when you're trying to move, trying to evolve. So they bring the strengths of, hey, start fresh. Let's just center on AI, Gen AI algorithms, and not just bolt those on to what we already have. But on the other hand, and I would put Google in that category. I mean, Google's got platforms. We they have a really nice low code platform, AppSheet, for example. But it looks to us like folks like Google is also trying to step away and do something fresh. And boy, do they have bona fides on AI and on Gen AI, machine learning, and a huge war chest to pursue, a new platform. So they're
And
they're interesting play.
And if they are thinking about a next gen application that brings low code and these new agentic capabilities together in a more compelling way, they haven't shared it with us, and they haven't shared it with the market all that effectively. If they have, in stark contrast to folks like Microsoft, who we'll get to, here quickly. You've mentioned orchestration a couple of times. Are we done with sort of the new guys of the world? Because I mean, we're going to get into this next week with Diego Amonto from Ryder. But, Ryder has been really effective in the content generation space by taking a different approach to LLMs and different approach to how content is developed for specific use cases. It's going to be really interesting to see that brain power applied to enterprise processes, which is all they're talking about now. It's like all you get from them. We'll see what Diego has to say. But that being said, integration is hard. I mentioned we'll get to Workato. And what I want to tee up right now is Camunda, and then just make a quick comment. When John says we looked at 14 vendors, we looked at 14 vendors that we thought were emblematic of certain types of patterns of application development. Not that there's 14 relevant vendors in the market, but 14 vendors that we thought represented these particular types of patterns particularly well, and one of which was Camunda, right? So at the heart of all this was this ugly old construct called BPMN that everybody had a field day making fun of for a decade. And that was if you had hairlines like John and I, that was probably something you were talking about. You probably threw a www on the front of a domain name. But you know what? It's really hard to do. It's really hard to orchestrate. It's really hard to maintain state. It's really hard to meld human states with application states, to bring in disparate technologies like RPA, like content intelligence, and now agents. And the standard and the capabilities of those vendors is really well established. It's really robust. Daniel Meyer from Camunda was on last week, talking about the role of orchestration. And, again, take it with a grain of salt, old guys with receding hairlines, but this is really difficult stuff to do. And these guys have been doing it for a very long time. And I think it's going to be hard, honestly, for the upstart vendors who are saying, oh, we'll just build that. It's not that easy to build. So what's on orchestration, John?
Particularly if if we're going to be crossing boundaries. This is one of the strengths that Workato brings to the party. I mean, Workato's approach to application integration is very deep, and it represents the sort of permissions, access structures in an environment. Boy, is that difficult. They've been at it for years, and
they can get to anything. I mean, anything. If you want to get to your data, Workato, vendors like Workato, the Boomies, the Zapiers, there's a lot of them out there. Our friends at Salesforce with MuleSoft.
Yep.
It's hard to get to this stuff. And what's interesting about Workato is not only can they get to it, but they've been they've been plumbing this concept of recipes and things moving in consistent patterns across these different data sources and organizational boundaries and system boundaries for a long time. And now they imply agentic capability to allow the agents to go figure that out on your behalf where appropriate. Yeah. Really interesting.
Yeah. The depth, I think what you're getting at is it's one thing to say, well, we've got, 100 connectors, but the depth of those connectors is really what matters.
And the context, and the ability to access the data in context, which I just don't think people really get.
Right.
All right. So,
what about Microsoft?
Sorry.
What about Microsoft? We took a close look at that.
Let's take a break. I want to do.
All right.
I want to do a commercial and then UiPath, and then we'll get to Microsoft and kind of figure this out. So, hey, listen, folks, if you like what you hear on Lowdown on Low Code, find us on analysis.tech. We're going to pitch this again with the new research that's coming up. But we've mentioned folks like Francis Cardin in the course of this podcast. Francis Cardin he founded the first RPA company. He went to work for Pega for many years. Dave Marcus, K2, and UiPath, deep experience in business development, and partner enablement, and product. Rick Greenwald, who really fills out our data science side of the world really effectively. Something that it's very, very difficult to do. We recognize we don't do it as well as we need to. We brought in Rick Greenwald, formerly of Gartner, for larger concepts, larger financial and economic concepts in the market. Andy Bartell is the former chief economist at Forrester, currently with us now. Brilliant economic mind. And can I throw out Julie?
Sure.
Not formerly one of us, but somebody who we're doing joint research right now, Julie Osk, who's one of those brilliant minds in UX. And we're just thrilled and delighted that she's going to do some research with us. Did I miss anybody, John? And John and I.
I think you got it.
I think we got it. All right. So
we are, you and I.
The talking heads, you don't have any other skills. All right. So a choir of angels sings. Right before our commercial break, we talked about Camunda. And I want to bring up something that's going on with UiPath. UiPath introduced Maestro. Oh my heavens! This was never going to happen, right? We're focused on tasks. RPA is going to take over the world. A bot for every.
Not anymore.
And now they've got this new capability called Maestro. Proof of the fact that this is difficult and takes a long time to build. They worked on it for a very, very long time. We're really hopeful to see what happens with this as it makes its way out of the market. But what a sea change, John. I mean, is Maestro indicative of these trends you're talking about?
Absolutely. UiPath saw the writing on the wall that if they were going to, they had the most widely used RPA platform on the planet. A lot of corporate customers, very, very successful company, but they recognized that if they wanted to continue to grow and continue to play a central role in their company's architectures, they had to do more than task automation. They had to get into process automation in a big way, which is really what Maestro is all about. And, you talked about Pega doing some great work with Blueprint.
Yep.
I actually think Blueprint points the way to tooling, the way tooling is going to look, not just natural language processing, but beyond that. Well, I think UiPath has done some really deep work in applying agents to application development on its platform, dealing with things like hallucinations and runaway tasks and so forth. So they've done some really deep work that's will allow them to be in the discussion about which next gen platform do I adopt.
Hey, John, the thing that keeps coming through in this is that every vendor we've talked about, every vendor we did analysis on, they all have really interesting perspectives and folks and perspectives that if you are interested in building these types of applications, which if you're not, you really are missing the boat here. But if you're interested in sort of investing in these types of capabilities in your enterprise, there's a lot of different vendors coming at this from a lot of different areas of strength, but they are hitting on this sort of common set of capabilities, which we internally have called the rubric. You have to do integration, you have to do orchestration, you have to have some degree of application development, actually a pretty robust degree of application development, which is going to be traditional and require deterministic type patterns that are mixed in with agent and probabilistic type patterns. And what you end up with is a really powerful type of new application that is better at crossing organizational boundaries. It's worth noting that, we mentioned Workato. So Workato is, really big on sort of the data, the integration side, moving things through those types of data-centric patterns, but also investing in modeling, also investing in orchestration, also realizing they've got to bulk up their application development capabilities, but also willing to partner. They partner with folks like Camunda. They partner with a lot, obviously, as sort of one of the premier integration engines. They also want to partner with everybody. But interesting, Workato also kind of building out these big capabilities.
Right.
Shall we head to the beautiful Pacific Northwest?
Yes, shall we? So Microsoft may be unique. One way to think about Microsoft when you as a provider of application development platforms is they actually provide three for three different audiences. Certainly, pro coders, massive commitments to Microsoft. Come on, and Microsoft's development of services, tools, etc. for even the process management side of pro coding. I mean, they're just a massive presence. They've got their low code portfolio, Power Platform, widely used, different audience. Some pro coders use it, but they're not the same as the folks that are slinging Python and C Sharp. And there are, of course, some business people that engage with Power Platform as well. They're sort of business developer type people. And then there's a world of Office. I mean, when you look at the usage of Copilot Studio, which Microsoft got out there pretty early with an agent development tool, and started to learn, the value and the prerequisites and all that. Well, most of Copilot Studio, it seems to be coming from the Office side. What? I mean, there's probably 1 billion people using Office. So of course they're going to engage and start to use, develop these new forms of automation. And then of course Microsoft has this partnership with OpenAI on the foundational models and the LLM side. So boy, do they have a lot of strengths.
Have you heard of this Azure thing? This new Azure thing is
there's a few real interesting services. I mean, Microsoft, like Google, this is AI is not new to them. They've been investing in machine learning stuff for a long time, and machine learning is important here. It's not just Gen AI. Machine learning is really important here. So Microsoft brings a lot to the party as well. And
they do. They bring sometimes too much, right? Sometimes too much. I'm always interested in seeing Microsoft take this concept of robust orchestration a little further than they've taken it with Power Automate. And it's always interesting to see how they're going to bring the assets together. But there's another interesting aspect of Microsoft, which I know Microsoft doesn't overlook it, but I think sometimes the market overlooks it, which is their relevance to the developer side of the business, IT, and their relevance to the business, right? So, Power Platform has been amazingly good at tapping into business innovation, business ingenuity. Copilot's going to do the same thing.
Yep.
If they really bring Copilot and Power Platform together in a really meaningful way, that'll be very interesting. Let's hit two more quickly before we go. We're going to come back to the Bay Area, and we're going to fly over to Portugal. So, ServiceNow, you have to take ServiceNow seriously, just in terms of like the comprehensiveness of the platform, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. And an abiding commitment to process automation.
Yes.
Which again, it's not easy, but they've got long experience, and They also like Microsoft are trying to address the business people as part of the development of applications.
Yep.
They've got experience in that. That's a key point, Rob. The citizen development topic, the controversy, the fear, and sometimes loathing, plays out here. There are a lot of agents that are being built by business people. Well, here we are. So if you've got, if you're working with a vendor and you've got a strategy that addresses citizen development and the vendor's helping you, you're in a better place, because agents are going there. AI is
I,
going there.
I think in terms of a we kind of mentioned maybe Microsoft has too many assets, and do they always pull these things together in the most compelling way possible? Do they really have that sort of everybody in the boat's thrown in the same direction? We don't have those issues with ServiceNow. Everything gets integrated into the
That's
platform
right.
before you do anything, and
That's
so
right. Yep.
yeah, it's a yet a different but a compelling vision. All right, last one too here. OutSystems, Mendix, the big traditional names in this space.
Yep.
Where do we look for them for value?
Well, the value that they bring to the party is they are robust business application development platforms. Traditionally, they have been deficient in their process automation capabilities. They have some, but we wish it was better. We wish it was more robust. And so that's the thing to watch with those. Now, of the two, Mendix has committed plans to actually go into process automation very deeply. Not real sure about OutSystems yet. What OutSystems has been doing is more, they've been very, very aggressive in applying both machine learning and Gen AI to making their platform way easier to use, way easier to develop on, which is really important stuff. It's not just enabling the creation of AI business applications. It's using AI in the platform to, for example, prevent you from making a stupid mistake that results in a slow application,
Yeah.
or opens up a security gap or something like that. So our system's gone real deep on that. Mendix, if we take them at their word, and when they say they're going to do something, they do it.
Except for citizen development.
Well, citizen development, they approach and then back off. But generally, generally they're a very effective organization. Their ambition is to compete with the Pegas and the Appians, which,
Yep.
well, hey, go big or go home.
They're part of Siemens. Very serious people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No messing around in manufacturing.
They got some, yeah, pretty good resources, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then if you're in manufacturing, it's a specialized world, and I do think they're spending some time as part of Siemens, figuring out how to specially address it. Well, hey, folks, if you've enjoyed this word salad, or you've been confused by this word salad, and you want to see this in a much more structured, easily digestible way, John, pitch the research and take us out.
So Monday, go to analysis.tech, go to our research page, and you will find a report called the AI Application Platform Race. And in that report, you will find the fruits of our research, and you will also find our predictions, shall we say, Rob, or our thoughts.
I think our advice, recommendations. I don't think we're making predictions. I think we're trying to point out patterns and let people know how to respond to them.
But there are some of these vendors that are better positioned than others, and you'll find that. But we're not going to give that away here. You got to go and read the research, because you'll get the full context. This is not a tome, and as Rob said, I think you'll find it very well structured and easy to consume, and it's free. You just have to give us your email address if you want this piece of work. So please have at it. And please let us know what you think. Where did we get it right? Where are we maybe smoking the curtains, as someone here likes to say? Let us know, because we're at the beginning of this transition, guys. There's a lot more to learn over time, and we very much appreciate your inputs, because we're all learning together.
Yep. And if you're one of those vendors who was not mentioned during the course of today's podcast or in the report, it doesn't mean we don't love you. And if you want to yell at us, it's Rob at analysis.tech and John at analysis.tech. Take care, everybody. Thank you.